various sources have commended your exceptional report writing skills. Would you be willing to share your methodology and the specific processes you follow when crafting those reports?
I just jotted down my thoughts during the review process. However, I did seek feedback from some friends before publishing my blog posts.
How much time do you dedicate hunting on projects before deciding to leave them?
I don't allocate too much time on a single project, but I would go back to previous project as long as I have some new ideas or tricks.
When it comes to research, do you generally prefer immersing yourself in a vast amount of content beforehand, such as reading documentation, exploring GitHub repositories, etc., or do you dive in as needed, learning new things along the way?
I prefer to learn by reading the codes. We don't have to follow all the docs. Sometimes the devs don't follow the specs in their docs.
How does your Recon process work? Considering that a lot of your findings were on unique targets that most hunters would look over or aren't mentioned on bug bounty programs.
I don't do a lot of audits. I only pick the projects with enough complexity and innovation.
How did you come across your thought process behind researching precompiles and the respective effects of delegate calls?
This is the instinct from the traditional vulnerability research. I know how and where the developers would like to introduce new risky ideas.
When you started out, did you ever doubt your skills? How long did it take until you started and then found your first bug? When you don't find bugs for a longer time, does that stress you? Or are you set with what you got and now focus on catching dinosaurs instead of little bugs?
I was pretty confident when I started out because I have read many bug reports and hacking stories in Web3. Most bugs are trivial and easy. It's much harder to survive if you work on traditional vulnerability research. I was very stressed in Web 2, so I had much more fun when exploring in Web 3.
As one of the greatest of this space, what are the few traits that you'd say that separates you from the rest? What are the things you consider made you become great aside hard work?
I was different from most auditors because I had experience in traditional vulnerability research, like binary exploitation. I was a top player in that field.
After those big wins, do you continue doing hunting? Do you have a normal job?
I'm struggling in the bear market, LOL. I do have a normal job as a security researcher.
How do you select a target for bug hunting? Is it based on the kind of knowledge you have, or is it based on random selection? Do you have your own set of tools that helps you while hunting?
Random. A few hours or days. No framework or tools.
I come from an Infosec background. Is that a good skills match to jump into auditing? Do they take some of the same lengths of time to gain experience?
It's good. It would take less time to be experienced if you are familiar with some hacking tricks.
When doing bug bounties, do you go through the whole project codebase?
I only check the most risky part of the codebase.
I come from a binary exploitation background, primarily focused on Windows hacking. While I haven't had much success with Web3 bugs lately, I'm curious about your thoughts on ZK vulnerabilities in the future. It seems that people are trying to integrate ZK features into existing public blockchains, which appears to be a complex undertaking.
I'm expecting new types of vulnerabilities from zero knowledge. It could some implementation issues in zero knowledge protocols. The math part of zero knowledge is very solid.
How do you get so flexible with different programming languages?
You don't need to know every detail of a new programming language. Just read the code. Auditors don't have to write the code.
Any tips to beginners?
Read as many reports as you can and try to reproduce the bugs.
What sort of next adventure do you want?
I would like to build a new team for security research.
Have you ever teamed up? If yes, how was it?
I want to introduce some talent hackers from Web 2 to Web 3 and build a more secure Web 3 world with them.
Do you look out for certain types of bugs when you look at a code base?
I only consider the worst-case scenarios in the codebase after thoroughly understanding the project's fundamentals. I don't anticipate specific bugs, but I am familiar with common attacks and prevalent security flaws.
In your experience, what's keeping the Web 2 hackers from trying out Web 3?
Some experienced hackers prefer to stay at their comfort zone, especially when they are still making breakthroughs constantly. Some hackers don't like the Web 3 hackings because most bugs in Web 3 are just stupid. Adults don't take pride in beating kids. Some hackers just don't believe in decentralization or any other Web 3 ideas. And they may consider the whole crypto world as a huge scam. The rewarding seems cool in Web 3, but most profit is collected by the black hat hackers. Some ethical hackers just do not believe that making huge profit is feasible without doing evil.
There's a dark side of bug bounties. Some projects just won't pay for valid vulnerabilities. The worst case scenario for them is that Me Anything will close their bounty program. How many times you were not paid? Can you speak about those? How did you feel when you received your first huge bounty? What is the least obvious advice you can give for bounty hunters? Do you think that learning binary exploitation will benefit Web 3 only security researchers? What are the things strict from Web 2 sec that would benefit Web 3 security researchers?
All the teams that I have reported to have paid the bounty in their way. The experience in binary exploitation allows me to understand new project with a large code base. You don't have to learn binary exploitation because most common vulnerabilities in binary, e.g. memory corruption bugs, are gone in Web 3.
What would you say is easier to break into, Web 2 sec or Web 3 sec?
You can start hacking Web 3 without any programming experience. It's like SQL injection and XSS bugs. You only need to know the core idea behind these hacking tricks to find your own bugs.
When conducting breach exploit investigations, did you utilize proof-of-concept development tools like Foundry or Hardhat, or did you employ alternative approaches?
LOL, I just used Remix.